Well, um, welcome back to the Artful Life Live. I wanted to keep things simple again this week and talk about something that's, been bubbling up for me a lot in the last while, and that is, why do we keep making things? Why do we keep creating? What's the deeper pull beneath it all? For me, it's been a, very full few weeks, months even. My attention has been pulled weeks, months even. My attention has been pulled in many, many directions. So this felt like the right moment to sit and reflect on what keeps us coming back to the work, even when everything gets busy or messy. So yeah, let's talk about that. So as I've mentioned in the previous videos, yes, life has, shifted. What some priorities have, made themselves are demanding more right now. Things that maybe were simmering in the background before, and they're demanding my attention and my energy and my focus. I've just continued to kind of like show up as best as I could in the circumstances, and rather than sort of fighting it and resenting it, I always find that creativity lives inside these fluctuations. The more I've kind of embraced that, the perfect conditions aren't available right now, the easier the easier it has been. And without that tension, it's been possible to keep my main creative project at the moment, which is a screenplay I'm rewriting, to keep working on that, at least 5 days a week. And, like I mentioned in previous videos, I had set aside screenwriting for a couple of years before this as I focused on other things. So coming back to this was, it felt exciting again. I didn't know when or how I would come back to any of these screenplays. I knew I would, but, the core question is, why do we keep coming back? What is that deeper pull? I can only explain what it is for me. It's a curiosity. There's a relief when I answer that curiosity. There's tension when I don't. I feel I'm more myself when I allow myself to be drawn down the creative path that I don't always know where it's going. Well, when we start anything, we don't always know where we're going. In the very early stages of a lot of my projects, I have, small bits and pieces. It could be a character, it could be a situation, it could be a dilemma, could be a relationship, it could be a location, it could be a line. But following that path, the only way I can describe it is I feel like I'm becoming more myself. When I don't allow myself to go down those paths, I feel an inner tension. I feel something is not quite right. I feel out of balance. There's even an emptiness if I leave it too long without following any of these, creative urges. I have a feeling that I must follow this instinct, even and especially when I don't know where it goes. We can look at other reasons. Some work matters because it connects us to others. Some maybe because it builds a body of work over time. Some work just simply asks to exist without explanation. Some work is maybe, paid, hopefully. and you are suddenly creating in a different environment where others' inputs will come into play. Whether that's an assignment or whether that's, a pitch that somebody has picked up, you are suddenly collaborating, and there has to be a lightness in that guide that guides us, the draw. What's pulling us has to become a little bit more sort of flexible. I feel that comes with practice. Like when I feel that, for example, sitting a lot. I've had back issues recently, and I've had to address the things that will help me in that. That's exercise and sleep and diet. And the more we, practice these things, the kind of more flexible we become in all of those things. That's in a physical sense. And when we practice going down a certain road, even though we don't know where it's going, if that's a project by ourselves or if it's a project on assignment, the more we practice that, the kind of looser we can become, and the easier it feels. Not that we're going to know exactly where we're going, but that we trust ourselves in the not knowing because we've done it before, and we're okay with the uncertainty. So yeah, some work asking to exist. It's an odd concept, but that's the way sometimes it feels. It feels like an intangible idea is sort of just asking, do you want me? Do you want to explore me? And sometimes it's a very gentle request. And sometimes it's a very, very strong pull. We just have to see where this, situation or character or, location takes us. I know what happens when I don't. When I have that, urge and I don't follow it, I know that I get swept up in other things to keep me busy from looking at it. I might start researching something else entirely. I might decide now is the time to learn the history of 14th century Russia. And that feels good for a while because we're filling we're filling a need to learn, to grow, but it's not the more pressing thing, and sometimes we choose the path of least resistance. Following that urge, sometimes the more we do it, we know that, wow, if I do, I'm in for a long ride. If it's a screenplay, you're in for a long journey. And is this idea strong enough to sustain you for the couple of years or more that it might take to see this through to completion? But we won't know until we try. If an idea is strong enough to light us up and to draw us forward, despite the confusion and the long hours and the sacrifices in other areas of our lives that we have to make to see it through, that needs to be honored. Because when I haven't in the past, when I've tried to ignore that call, I've just felt uneasy, and I've had to distract myself in other ways, and the voice is always there. And the nice thing to know is we can't follow. The other thing is we can't follow every single idea. But even when we do follow an idea, and if we get stuck or if we get pulled away for whatever reason, the work doesn't vanish. The initial drive that you had to create it might change over time. But when you do come back, you'll be bringing a new energy to it. And it's kind of like meeting an old friend, you know? It's like getting to know each other again. I've changed. The work has changed. How do we, you know, rekindle this and create something new? So as we change, yes, the work that we're going to create will change too. And that's one of the unknowables, especially with longer projects. We start out and we're in one, you know, state of being. We're in one state of growth or understanding or learning or experience. And by the time we get to the end, both because of the experience of doing the work and from other external factors, we will have changed. And thus our relationship to the work will have changed too, and the work itself will have changed with us. So I would say that for me, maybe this is true for you too, that we keep making things because making art, creating, writing, drawing, painting, sculpting, it's how we stay awake to our own lives. It might seem kind of counterintuitive that being awake to our own lives might require a lot of solitude and a lot of intense focus and a lot of shutting out of the world. But that is the life of that is the creative life. Even when we're isolated doing the work, we're never more alive. So keep those small acts coming, you know, when you can't do all you plan to do in a day, do something, do the little bit, just, you know, tip your hat to the little guy waiting there kind of saying, hey, tell my story, you know, just sort of drop in and say hello. It's not always going to be a huge, big visit. Sometimes it could just be, you know, drop in, say hello. I can't stay. But I just wanted to, you know, let you know that I haven't forgotten about you. And all the imperfect actions, all the imperfect hours, weeks, they all count. So as I continue in my own, navigating my own reasoning of why we create, what is drawing me to keep creating in the midst of all the other chaos going on around me, I ask you, if you were to reflect, what keeps you creating, both in tougher times and in more smooth times? And thank you for joining me, and I look forward to continuing on our creative journeys together, and we'll see you next time.